Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm Elizabeth Burden, your host for AZ Illustrated Arts. Tonight, meet a filmmaker whose latest project searches for meaning in his father's social activism. I'll talk with two guests about the people, creativity, and science behind the 40th annual TusCon Science Fiction Convention.
When I was a kid, and science fiction wasn't as popular and comic books weren't as popular, this was before the era of the big budget superhero movies, and now it's cool to be a geek. But when I was a kid, it wasn't.
Learn why a local physician felt the need to write about the legacy of President John Kennedy's assassination. Find out how opera's traditions are evolving to include a new generation of fans and performers. And look into the faces of some of the participants in this year's All Souls Procession. But first, today's top stories.
The widow of Arizona rancher Rob Krentz, who was killed near the border in 2010, is asking a judge to prohibit the release of any information about her husband's death. That request comes after it was revealed that one of the people of interest in the case is a U.S. citizen. When the body of Krentz was found in 2010, footprints were tracked to the Mexican border, and his death became a rallying point for many border security hawks. No suspects have been named. Mrs. Krentz objects to the release of the investigative file because she says it contains confidential material and graphic photos of her husband. The Arizona Office of Employment Statistics is predicting gradual job growth for the rest of the year and a better outlook next year. Each year, the state compares year-to-year numbers for how many jobs will be added to Arizona's economy. According to the latest forecast, the state will add nearly 49,000 jobs this year, more than last year, and by the end of 2014, the state is expected to add about 100,000 jobs. The Rio Nuevo District Board has hired a contractor to improve the Tucson Convention Center. The board voted this week to hire General Concord Contracting to do about $5 million of work to remodel the Convention Center arena. The company will also replace all of the seating in the arena. And in a story last night, we aired in naming the law firm in which new Pima County Judge D. Douglas Metcalf is a partner. In fact, he is a partner with Louis Rocha Rothgerber. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
This weekend in Tucson, the Loft Film Fest will showcase a range of independent, foreign, and classic movies, including work by established and emerging artists. One filmmaker will be sharing his personal view on how the idealism of the 1960s led to the cutthroat capitalism of the 1980s. Luis Carrion brings us the story.
Tatanka is the name of a new feature documentary screening this weekend as part of the Loft Film Fest.
As a child, I grew up watching my father and his friends change the world.
The film tells the story of noted 60s social activist Kit Bricca.
It's sort of a story about a 60s dreamer who is still living in 2013, kind of like the 60s never ended, who happens to be my father.
Jacob Bricca is the film's director and producer. He says the film is a personal documentary, telling the story of an activist whose life journey defines the promise and the peril of unmitigated idealism.
It's a film about kind of the tragedy of idealism, the difficulties of idealism. And my father was someone who really strongly believed in a lot of the causes that he worked for and worked with in the late 60s and through most of the 70s. Amnesty International, the United Farm Workers Union, the anti-war movement against Vietnam, lots of other things. And I think it's sort of about one of the foot soldiers in those battles who really was a very gifted organizer.
Tatanka, the title of Bricca's film, comes from the name his father took on as the foot soldier of those countless battles. Tatanka means buffalo in Lakota.
He's sort of been on a spiritual path for a long time also. And there was a point where I really didn't understand where was Kit Bricca, my dad? Who was this guy named Tatanka? And so it was, and for me and some of my siblings, that was a difficult time, and it was difficult for us to understand. And so it's sort of, the story really, as it plays out, is sort of about that separation that occurred, and then sort of a reconciliation of coming to understand the fullness of who he is and how Tatanka relates to the guy that I remember. Jeff, would you mind getting the lights?
Bricca, aside from being a filmmaker, is an assistant professor in the University of Arizona School of Theater, Film, and Television, where he teaches a class on editing and is using his experience to guide his students.
They're working on different kinds of problems that one encounters when editing both narrative and documentary material. It's also like, it's as a montage, it's kind of arbitrary. It's just
Bricca says Tatanka is a personal film, and as such presents specific challenges to him as a filmmaker. He says the challenges are about finding the right tone and voice within the film, and they allow his students to learn from his experience.
The personal documentary is sort of a category in and of itself, with its own history, with its own, the films that influenced me and a lot of other filmmakers, and kind of a lineage of this kind of filmmaking. And this film is a really interesting case study in that, because the negotiation of how I as a character appear in the film is one that we worked a lot on. And trying to figure out how much of me would be in the film as a voice, as a narrator.
Lacking the courage to confront him, I finally decided to make a film instead, hoping that my role as a filmmaker would give me a perspective that I lacked as a son.
Bricca says the film is ultimately about the man who went by the name of Tatanka, but it's also about him as the son of Kit Bricca, and more indirectly, it's about him as the filmmaker, the author, and the narrator.
And as the author of it, very difficult to separate myself from the material enough to know what was the difference between what was interesting and important to me and what an audience would even care about, and how much of the former we were getting across into the latter. And so at a certain point, a lot of things that were at one point in the film came out because I just wasn't as interesting a character as my dad was.
Tatanka screens Sunday as part of the Loft Film Fest. Go to newsazpm.org for more information on the film and the festival.
In the days before the internet, regional science fiction conventions were one of the few ways for dedicated fans to share news and opinions. The first TusCon happened in 1974, and the annual event now attracts some of the most famous names in imagination and real world science. Joining me are Jeffrey Notkin, who uses his skills as a scientist, writer, and explorer to host the television series Meteorite Men and STEM Journals, and best-selling fantasy and mystery author Juliet Blackwell, who will be the guest of honor at this weekend's 40th annual TusCon. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
A question for each of you. What role does the community of sci-fi fans have in your work or in its success? Let's start with you, Julia.
I think it's hard to overemphasize how important the fans are. I think none of us really get into this business, I expect, to make a fortune. If I did, I'm actually from the area. I grew up right down the street from Steve Jobs and Apple Computer, and I'd be in computers if I were wanting to just get the money. And what I'm actually after is the beauty of creativity and interacting with readers. I don't even want to call them fans per se, because I grew up as an avid reader, as all writers I know did, and I'm still an avid reader, and so I guess we're all fans as well as writers.
Jeff?
Science fiction fans have a love of imagination and grandeur, and I think all science fiction enthusiasts want to go to space or at least be involved in it somehow, and they're my people. I feel such a kinship for science fiction and fantasy enthusiasts. And I have to agree with Juliet. You'd never wake up one day and go, wow, I've decided to become a famous science fiction writer and make loads of money. It's not the best career path. But
You're in it for the love of
you
it.
are.
Yeah.
And I feel such friendship and belonging with the science fiction community. And they've always supported me and my work. And I hope I can do the same by appearing at conventions and similar.
So what do you think the fans or the sci-fi enthusiasts get from coming to this kind of convention and being able to interact with you and your work?
Well, the first word that comes to mind again is kinship. there's a sense of belonging. And I think that, especially when I was a kid, and science fiction wasn't as popular and comic books weren't as popular, this was before the era of the big budget superhero movies. And now it's cool to be a geek. But when I was a kid, it wasn't. And if you were a comic book fan or you were a science fiction fan, you were part of a really teeny little minority. And so going to conventions and meeting like-minded people, on one hand gave me a feeling of belonging, and on the other, there was this kind of frantic exchange of information, like, have you seen the latest issue of this? And look at this new book by Asimov. And there's this sort of free flow of information and the joy in communicating with people who share a love of speculative fiction and of just dreaming larger.
So Juliet, what do you think your readers get from an experience of participating in something like this?
Well, I think that you're right that the internet has changed things a little, and just what Jeff was saying about the exchange of information. It's now, there's a lot of that exchange over the internet, but as we all know, those of us who spend a lot of time on the internet, it lacks that personal interaction. And there's just nothing, it is like a bunch of kids getting together, I have to say, no matter how old we are, and the audience is of all ages. But we are like kids. It's just so exciting.
Well, it seems to be you're also very open, accessible to your readers. How does that impact your writing?
You know, I think that it is, it's definitely a two-way street. I hear from people what they're interested in. I can see what they respond to. I think anyone who writes, we know what it is to sit alone for months at a time, years at a time, coming up with a story. And by the time you've worked on it for a year, it's hard to know even what might resonate, what might not. And so you really get that response, and you get that direct response from readers who are very invested in your characters, or very invested, or maybe a particular scene has really made them respond. And that's exciting. So it's exciting in terms of motivating me to sit down and write some more. But it's also wonderful to get that immediate feedback and know what people are responding to and what kind of characters.
Jeff, I understand that you are premiering a film at this conference. Is that part of what you're hoping to do with premiering, is get some of that immediate feedback and response?
Well, the film that we're premiering on Friday, it's the Arizona premiere. It's Radio Free Albemarle. And it's a film version of the last book by Philip K. Dick, who is a visionary science fiction writer, and he's known best for Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report, one great film after another made from his works. So the film is complete, and it is preparing to be released nationally in the States. And as I'm an associate producer on the film, when I was invited to attend TusCon as a guest, I contacted the director, John Allen Simon, and our producer, Elizabeth Carr, and said, how about we do the Arizona premiere at TusCon? And I moved to Tucson 10 years ago, and I really belong in this city. I love its quirkiness, and I love its great support for the arts. So we've got a big science fiction community here in Tucson, and I just thought it would be perfect, be the perfect venue to launch the film in Arizona. So of course we welcome feedback, but the film is finished. So if people have comments, I'll probably have to gently deliver them to John, I think.
So in the last 30 seconds, Juliet, my last question is for you. Is the label science fiction still important? Are labels still important? Your works tend to blend?
Yeah, I think mine is a little more genre bending. They're officially mysteries, but they're also fantasy because they include paranormal. So it's they're both paranormal mystery series. And I think that science fiction is one of those terms, even Bradbury didn't like it. So it can be contentious. And I know that this con very specifically says science fiction, fantasy, and horror, I think in an attempt to cover all those different genres, because there is so much overlap between them.
Juliet, Jeff, thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
The 40th Annual TusCon Science Fiction Convention is happening this weekend, November 8th through the 10th, at the Hotel City Center in Tucson.
The Food and Drug Administration said today companies may soon have to eliminate artery-clogging artificial trans fats from their products.
Wall Street's all a Twitter. The social media giant goes public, turning 140-character messages into a company now valued in the tens of billions.
And in one Colorado county, health insurance costs are much higher than in the rest of the state, complicating the push to get the uninsured signed up for new plans. Those are just some of the stories we're covering on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
There are still many different interpretations of what happened on November 22, 1963. My next guest's research led him to the conclusion that Americans have still not been told the truth. Dr. Richard Beyer wrote a book in 2009 called Why the JFK Assassination Still Matters: The Truth for My Daughter Kennedy and for Generations to Come. Dr. Beyer, where did your inspiration for writing this book come from?
I saw John F. Kennedy when he was campaigning in 1960, and I was a senior in college at the time. And just to hear him talk and watch his mannerisms, it was extremely charismatic. He was very dignified. And you could, to use the old expression, you could hear a pin drop. So that was probably my first knowledge of him. He was the first president I ever voted for, and I think everyone remembers who they voted for first. And then he was assassinated. I grieved like everyone else did for 4 days. But life goes on. I went to medical school and then got married and started a family, and life goes on. And all of a sudden, I just started picking up a book and read about the assassination. And one led to two, and two led to four. And I've currently read probably about 250 books, most on the assassination, with the impression that what I have been told for 50 years, and what everyone at that age was told for 50 years, certainly is not true, and it couldn't possibly have happened the way it did.
You mentioned your daughter Kennedy and the subtitle to your book, and this book is dedicated to her and people of her generation. What's the message that you would like to send? Well,
Kennedy's birth date is the day of the assassination, November 22nd. Once I developed my own ideas after all this research I was done, I happened to go to Kennedy's school and looked in their history books. And they're essentially being fed the same material that I was fed, that Oswald was the killer of President Kennedy. And I just feel that it's a lie. I was lied to. I don't want my daughter lied to. We certainly don't want any future generations lied to. Whether or not the actual truth will ever come out, I don't know. I hope it does.
In writing your book, you really provide several succinct pages of summation of some of the facts relating to the case. What did you uncover in your research that you would say surprised you the most?
I think the biggest thing that surprised me was the opposition of what happened versus the story that the government and Warren Commission gave. The Parkland Hospital, the medical evidence I thought was fascinating, maybe in part because I am a physician. But the doctors who were trained trauma physicians in Texas at the time who first saw Kennedy listed their findings, and when the Warren Commission did their analysis and the autopsy did its analysis, it was in complete opposition to what Parkland said. You can't have it both ways. Either he was shot from front or shot from back. As it happened, he was shot from both directions. But what actually happened completely refuted what the Warren Commission said.
This 50-year anniversary must be kind of a shocking date. Does it seem like a half century has passed?
Not at all. I've kept busy. Obviously, JFK assassination is a passion of mine. Time goes. You can't undo what's happened before. It certainly does not seem like 50 years. It obviously makes me 50 years older. And I remember vividly my college days when I first had him speak.
Do you think that history has closed the book on the Kennedy assassination?
I certainly hope not, because if history has closed the book, then we have an inaccurate interpretation of history. I really feel that John F. Kennedy was not assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald. I honestly don't feel that Lee Harvey Oswald fired a shot at President Kennedy. It was a conspiracy. Many reasons why the conspiracy was there. I don't blame any specific area. I think there's just a rogue full of individuals from various departments who wanted Kennedy dead for one reason or another. And Kennedy, in his very short time, made a lot of enemies.
Thank you for sharing your time and your research with us, Dr. Beyer. Next Tuesday and Wednesday, PBS Channel 6 will present new documentaries about the life and death of JFK. You can find a complete schedule online at azpm.org.
The University of Arizona Opera Theater inaugurates its new season November 14th with a performance by opera students. Here to tell us more are Opera Guild President Carol Garrard, Director David Ward, and performer and U of A doctoral candidate Dory Smith. Thank you all for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure.
Carol, as I understand it, the key purpose of the Opera Guild is to help opera students launch their careers. How does the Guild do this?
We do it in two ways. First of all, we provide a platform for the students to practice their craft, and that has to be in front of an audience. The U of A does 2 student operas during the year, but the Arizona Opera Theater, the professional company, does 5, and therefore we give 2 previews to the city for free, and we have the opera students perform the key arias and semi-stage the opera.
Why do you think this is important, this important work to do?
In terms of offering them the stage, I think it's so they can practice their craft, because an opera singer is basically naked on stage. In addition to all of that physical work they do, they have to know if they're going to have a connection with the audience, charisma between other opera singers. And this is the best place to practice it. However, the main thing we do is we raise money to give to the Arizona opera students. And this is a particularly critical time. The reason being that any parent watching this show who has a student at the University of Arizona knows that the tuition has been soaring. However, since 2007, the state legislature has kept all grants, tuition remission, and scholarships for vocal students level. So we have a level amount of aid coming from the state and a parabola of need. Okay. Now, the Opera Guild's been in existence since 1958, and since that time, we've given a grand total of over $400,000.
And Dory, how have you benefited from the Opera Guild?
I've directly benefited from the performance opportunities awarded to me through the Opera Guild of Southern Arizona. I've had the privilege of performing as Constanza and as Lucia in the Opera Guild previews, which are just fantastic opportunities, again, to explore the craft, to explore roles that are appropriate for us within a safe, comfortable setting full of opera lovers who really are endeavoring to support opera singers in their very difficult trajectory to a performance career.
Well, and the popular notion probably of opera audiences is not necessarily someone who is young or from your generation. So my first question, or my second question to you is, why study opera, and what do you think it will take to keep it relevant for your generation and generations to come?
I think it's a challenge, honestly. What first attracted me to opera is that it's a fusion of multiple different art forms. It combined my love of languages, my love of dramatic works and the stage, and my love of music. To me, it is a perfect fusion, a perfect hybrid that can really transcend cultural changes and time. I think it is our responsibility, though, to continue to renew it, to continue to make it exciting and engaging, and to continue to introduce it to young people in future generations.
So David, same question for you. How to keep it relevant? Why teach it?
Because I think it speaks to the human soul. I think so much of the genuine emotions that come out of opera, you know, love and hatred are such basic human emotions, and the opera composers, I think, wrote about those things. Now, ironically, I made my career as a comic base, and I discovered I could be singing Italian operas and still make audiences who only spoke English laugh.
And why do you think that was?
Well, partly because we have super titles that help translate it, but also the basic messages of the opera is so human. You know, I would always play old characters who were grumpy and were always getting tricks played on them, and people could see that and enjoy it.
Well, the upcoming production is Die Fledermaus. Tell us a little bit about that production.
Die Fledermaus, written by Johann Strauss in the late 19th century, and it's like a Vienna pastry, because it's very light and frothy. You know, Strauss was the waltz king, so it's filled with all these beautiful waltzes. And I think it's been a great opportunity to expose the students to a kind of performing. You know, it's very pastiche. The comedy's a little broad, but at the same time, they're singing some fantastic ensembles and some of the hardest arias written for sopranos. Dory is singing.
That is true.
Yes.
Well, what's challenging about it for you?
Well, the Csárdás is written in sort of a Hungarian style to capture the flavor of that style of sort of gypsy music and influences. And it's presented in a comic sense. So the challenge of Strauss, which is expertly carried off by David Ward, is that you have to embody the physicality of the joke.
Okay.
That is sort of the undercurrent of what's happening on stage. And the audience is well aware of this, so they can just watch the narrative unfold, while still retaining composure and presenting the music as authentically and as beautifully as you can.
In just the minute we have left, David, tell us a little bit more about what else is in store this season.
Well, this spring we are going to do an evening of 3 one-acts. Right now I'm calling it the TusCon Tridico. But we're going to do the 3 third acts, the third act of La Bohème, the third act of Les Nozze di Figaro, and the third act of Les Contes d'Hoffmann. And what we're going to do is give as many people as possible in the music program, in the opera program, an opportunity to perform. And we'll be doing it, the Bohème and the Nozze in Italian and the Hoffmann in French.
Well, David, Dory, Carol, thank you all so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last week on this show, we told you about the transformation the annual All Souls Procession brings to downtown Tucson. Now, we'd like to show you how it also transforms those who participate in it. I'm Elizabeth Burden. Thank you for watching AZ Illustrated Arts. To post a comment on any of our stories or to keep up with the latest news, visit us online at azpm.org.